Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are doing wonderful. Hopefully, all you guys are doing well. Today is Monday, and it is the 16th of February. Hopefully, all you guys had a wonderful weekend. I myself had a pretty solid one. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated as we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by this summer. I want to thank you all so much for helping us hit 900 subscribers on YouTube. It means the world to me. Thank you all so much. We are getting so close to 1,000. And don't forget, when 1,000 comes out, I have a new little show that I have getting ready to release for you guys. I'm planning on recording it this upcoming weekend. It's going to be pretty good, so I'm excited for that. Outside of that, though, hopefully all you guys are doing wonderful. And let's get into today's episode. Moving on into our headlines in history, as we do. The headline we have today, for today, also Happy President's Day, forgot that was today, is the Maine blown up, terrible explosion on board United States battleship in Havana Harbor. This is from February 16th of 1898. The previous evening, a large explosion sank the United States battleship Maine in Havana Harbor. The Times reported in March a court inquiry found that the explosion, which killed around 260 men, was caused by a submerged mine. Though much of the American public thought Spain was to blame, a 1976 investigation found that it was likely triggered by a fire in the ship's coal bunker. Remember the Maine became a rallying cry for those who wanted the United States to intercede on Cuba's behalf in its struggle for independence from Spain, which it did on April of 1898. This, of course, talks about the early parts of the Spanish-American War. Holy door slam! And along with that, it talks about the struggle and the opposition the Americans had against the Spanish in that period, which was big. It really was. I've done a lot of research on the Spanish-American War because the United States did gain quite a bit of land from that, and it was definitely something that I wanted to learn more about. We got things like the Philippines, we got control over Cuba in a way, not really, but ish. We got Puerto Rico and a handful of other islands, right? And it was really an interesting part of history and an interesting conflict in history. And I definitely do remember the Maine before. That's something that I do remember reading about. So it's something interesting for sure. Outside of that, though, we'll move into our headlines from today. The highlight from today, I want to talk about something. I rejected TMZ today. I was invited to have the opportunity to discuss a topic with TMZ today. I was excited to do so. I thought it would be a good opportunity to expose my brand, not because I like TMZ, not really a fan of them in the first place, but I thought it'd be a good opportunity to get my name out, right? But following watching some of their live stream, and watching those who went before me, I felt the way that they approached their content is just not something that I wanted to be a part of, and seemed really unprofessional in a way. And while watching the stream, they were discussing the people who were coming up next on their live. They were interviewing people, and they were doing everything alive. You could even see the camera sometimes, right? It was really interesting. And I don't think when you're doing news, and at least my opinion, that's something you should be doing. And maybe they do it differently, whatever. I do it differently, sure. But like, you know, it. I found it to be extremely unprofessional, and they started berating somebody that they were going to be talking to. There was this guy that they were going to talk to for a topic, and the host blatantly said live on air. This guy was sitting on his couch, from what I remember, and the host said, "No, we're not going to do that. You can't do it on the couch. It looks ugly, right?" And it's like, you're saying that on air as the host of the show. Like, that's really unprofessional, at least to me. You know, I was already not a fan of TMZ as a company, but their practices, and on top of this, they wouldn't even let me promote my own brand, which they requested me to come on there to use my brand, but I wasn't allowed to promote it. That to me just seems so dumb, right? And maybe it would have been a good opportunity to get myself out there, but to me it just didn't seem like something that was worth my time. And These people, at the end of the day, did not seem like the greatest individuals, in my opinion. As someone who has discussed news for over a year now, I feel I have the right to at least be critical on this. And this may have been like my first opportunity here. Hopefully, it's not my last, right? But at the end of the day, I don't think I'm 100% the most professional. But that what I saw today is not something that is professional at all, in my opinion, and it's not something I would want to associate myself with. Technically, they are supposed to be a professional news company, and for you to berate somebody that you are inviting on air. Their social media team reached out to me. I assume that was to other people as well. And for you to berate that individual, just to me, that seems not only messed up, but wrong and stupid. Outside of that, though, that's my story for today. I know TMZ is more of a right leaning corporation. I am well aware of that, and again, wasn't willing to do it because of my support for the company. I don't like the company at all. I just thought it would be a good opportunity to get my name out. TMZ is pretty popular. Unfortunately, I decided to decline because they are not kind and really rude. And I don't know if I want to associate myself with that personally. Anyways, moving on into our Trump administration segment, where we have one topic here today. Trump's Board of Peace is planning to meet. Trump's new Board of Peace he created to spread world peace will officially be meeting in Washington, D.C. Announced by him on Truth Social, he wrote, "The Board of Peace has ultimate potential. Last October, I released a plan for the permanent end to the conflict in Gaza, and our vision was unanimously adopted by the United Nations Security Council. Shortly thereafter, we facilitated humanitarian aid at record speed and secured the release of living and deceased hostages. Just last month, 24 distinguished founding members joined me in Davos, Switzerland, to celebrate its official formation and present a bold vision for the civilians of Gaza, and then ultimately far beyond Gaza, world peace. On February 19th of 2026, I will be joined again by the Board of Peace members of the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace in Washington, D.C., where we will announce that the member states have pledged more than $5 billion towards the Gaza humanitarian and reconstruction efforts and have committed thousands of personnel to international stabilization force and local police to maintain security and peace for Gazans. Very importantly, Hamas must uphold its commitment and full and immediate demilitarization. The Board of Police will prove to be the most consequential international body in history, and it is my honor to serve as the chairman, President Donald J. Trump." I feel like this will ultimately be the leading factor to Trump's Gaza, right? The thing that we have discussed but not really heard a lot about. But it's that he said he wanted to do it last year, right? Which does not make the situation any better. They still intend on ethnically cleansing the strip with Trump Gaza. And at the end of the day, the people of Gaza should be allowed to live there, right? They have been there for a very long time. There's no reason why we should be removing them from the strip. They have every right to live there. I mean, who's stopping them? I personally do not think that any country should have religious laws. I think every country should have the freedom of religion. We have it here in the United States, and I believe we should have that everywhere in the world, right? The people of Gaza have lived there just because they don't want to support the religion of Judaism doesn't mean that they don't deserve to live there, right? Both Israel and the United States intend on taking that away from them, which is not okay in the slightest, and something should be done about that. Unfortunately, I just don't think we're going to see that because a lot of the world is really willing to bend to the will of both countries. Anyways, moving on into our segment about the Epstein files, where we have a lot of interesting topics here for today. The first topic we have is the Department of Justice has released a list of potentially exposed persons in the Epstein files. This does not mean that they were doing horrible things, but that does mean that they have been mentioned or referenced within the files. The Department of Justice has released a list of hundreds of prominent people within the Epstein files, sending them to Congress. The list includes cultural icons like Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, Princess Diana, but also a variety of politicians were mentioned as well. People like Donald Trump, people like Bill Clinton, Steve Bannon, people from Norway, a whole ton of people, right? Nobody in the list has been charged except for Ghislaine Maxwell. Take a sip of water real quick. All these people should be investigated, right? For their involvement or possible involvement within these files because they're being mentioned, and that's a big deal. especially Trump, who's very clearly in the files. There are thousands of allegations against the man within these files. You can go research them for yourself. Bill and Hillary Clinton already plan to speak in front of Congress, which is great. Trump should too. He really, really should. Innocent or not, if the sitting president is being mentioned in the Epstein files, it should be a big enough deal to force him to testify. And if it comes that he is involved for horrendous things, he should go to prison for the rest of his life. That was already going to happen. He wasn't president right now, except it didn't, because he won the election somehow. In other news, the Trump Department of Justice has announced that it is done releasing all of their files to Congress. The Department of Justice has announced it is has released all of the files that it is required to release to Congress, but lawmakers claim this amount is insufficient. In a letter sent to members of Congress from Pam Bondi and her deputy attorney, they said all documents held by the Department of Justice had been released. Pam Bondi said, in accordance with the requirements of the Act as described in various department submissions to the courts of the Southern District of New York, assigned with the Epstein and the Maxwell prosecutions and relative orders, the department released all the records and documents, communications, and investigative materials in the possession of that the department can relate to any of the 9 different categories. I really don't believe this, in all honesty. We all know that there is still more in the files, right? That they haven't released, right? They said when they released this last batch of Epstein files that not all of these files have been released, that there are still more to be released. And that's why the lawmakers are claiming that this amount is insufficient because there's still more out there, right? There are millions of Epstein files, millions. You know, uh, and Congress only has these unredacted versions of what the public has. It's not like they've gotten anything new in the past few days, from what I understand. They only have what the public has. There are still more files out there that need to be released to the public, and we also need to start prosecuting the people who are actively being mentioned within these files. In other news, the Epstein Ranch in New Mexico has been purchased by the family of a Trump Republican candidate. The Zorro Ranch, formerly owned by Jeffrey Epstein, has been purchased by a self-identified Trump Republican who is running in Texas. Trump spokesperson or Trump Republican Donald Huffs, a former GOP senator and confirmed former GOP senator, confirmed that he purchased the property in Santa Fe, New Mexico. A spokesperson for the family told The Guardian 4 years after Mr. Epstein's death, the Huffs family purchased the property in New Mexico, listed at a public auction whose proceeds benefited the victims. Prior to the auction listing, they had never visited the property. You know, I don't know that there's anything about him in the Epstein files, but I think rightfully so. I'm a little suspicious of anyone who would be willing to buy a property owned by a person who is related to arguably one of the largest human trafficking cases of all time. If I could speak English, right? One way or another, to me, it just seems like something suspicious, especially as somebody who is claiming to be, a Trump Republican, right? We already know that Trump is in the Epstein files. For somebody who is very clearly to claim their allegiance to Trump, to me that just seems like, a little odd, right? Anyways, moving on into our other news segment, the FCC opened an investigation into the Bad Bunny halftime show. They found absolutely nothing, unshockingly. Following calls to investigate the Bad Bunny NFL halftime show by Congressman Randy Fine, the FCC has finished their investigation and found absolutely nothing. According to the New York Post, one of the officials said, one problem with any possible FCC inquiry is that Bad Bunny sang in Spanish. So, presumably, when the FCC managed to get the translation of what was actually said, the evidence of rule violations seemed thin at best. There is no reason for them to do this anyways, right? They were always going to find nothing within this investigation. Bad Bunny didn't do anything wrong at all. People are just hung up on the fact that Bad Bunny spoke Spanish during the show, which they probably weren't even a fan of or didn't even care about at the end of the day. Like, I get a lot of people watch the halftime show, but at the end of the day, the Super Bowl is for the NFL, which is the National Football League, which plays football games. Like the halftime show really isn't the most important part about it, to people who are going to be watching the Super Bowl. At the end of the day, like if you really care about football, halftime show shouldn't matter to you. And if it does, and if you are hating on it because he spoke Spanish, it's just blatant racism. It really is. I mean, the halftime shows normally suck, anyways. I think a lot of us can agree to that. But the last 2 years were pretty good. I liked Bad Bunny's. I liked Kendrick Lamar's. I thought they were good halftime shows. I thought they said a lot. I thought they were really important. And I don't think either of them deserve to be hated on. I think they both spoke to a lot of what we needed to hear right now in this country. In other news, I have a runny nose. That's my news. Every once in a while it starts getting cold, and then I have a cold, and we all know how life works, right? And then I have a runny nose through these videos, and I'm talking, and I make it like all the way through, and my nose starts itching a ton because I haven't blown my nose. It sucks, but hey, that's how you go. In other news, though, Obama has responded to the Trump video. Former President Barack Obama has responded to the racist video posted of him by Trump earlier this month in an interview with YouTuber Brian Tyler Cohen. Obama said, "There doesn't seem to be any shame about this among people who used to feel like you had to have some sort of decorum and sense of propriety and respect for the office. There is some sort of clown show happening on social media and television." He went on to call it a distraction. And he's right. At the end of the day, this is a distraction. We all know that Trump is racist. It's nothing new. But I expressed this when when the video came out. There are bigger things to worry about in the country, and it's a distraction. We should be talking about things like the Epstein files. We should be talking about the fact that the Trump administration continuously breaks the law over and over again. Speaking of this interview, and I don't know if I didn't mention this when I talked about TMZ, but when we were going to select the topic, right? The topic that they forced me to do, I didn't get to pick my topic. They made it seem like I got to pick my topic at first at the start, in my opinion. Didn't get to pick it. I had to essentially be chosen a topic. I wanted to talk about, Trump endorsing Stephen A. Smith. Maybe I'll talk about that, but I didn't. The video that I was going to talk about was Obama interviewing YouTuber Tyler Bryant, or not Obama interviewing, the YouTuber interviewing Obama, right? And in the interview, they talked about aliens being real. And that's the segment they asked me to talk about, which was interesting. Maybe I'll talk about my opinions on that if you guys are interested in that. I can talk more about my very short-lived TMZ era that I refused to do. But hey, it was definitely interesting. It was cool to have that opportunity. I really do hope I get another opportunity with another news company in the future. I would love to be able to actually speak, and get myself out there for a company that doesn't seem unprofessional and rude. But hey, maybe me saying this probably doesn't help that. In other news, we have some really unfortunate news as a mass shooting has taken place in Rhode Island. Three have been hospitalized, while three others have been found dead following a shooting at an indoor ice rink in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, during a high school boys hockey game. According to local police chief Tina Gonclaves, the suspect is one of the ones found dead, dying of self-inflicted wounds. Gonclaves claimed the event could have been targeted and says that we were putting the pieces together. They believe that this could have been related to a family dispute. My condolences to everyone involved and harmed by this situation. It is truly horrible, and I really hope all of you guys are able to recover. As always, if anything big comes out of this one, I'll keep you guys updated. It is definitely interesting if it's related to a family dispute. Again, it's really not our business if it's related to a family dispute. But it is interesting to hear about things like that. I don't know. I'm talking about the news. Clearly, I'm one for the drama, right? But at the end of the day, it's interesting, and we'll see what happens with this one if anything big comes out of it. Anyways, moving on to our final topic for tonight. This one's a lot more positive. A Minnesota tow truck owner is working to return vehicles of those who have been detained by ICE. Juan Leon, the owner of Leo's Tow in West St. Paul, Minnesota, is voluntarily giving families back their vehicles for free after they have been left abandoned by ICE operations. He has helped over 250 vehicles so far and is often using tips on his GoFundMe to secure cars in parking lots. This is the type of community support that we need right now in this country. And I'm glad to be seeing it. I hope we can see more of it across the country. Minnesota has really been a test of the will of the American people recently, and I'm glad to have seen it. It really is great to see, and I hope we can see it more. Outside of that, though, thank you everyone for watching today's episode. I hope you'll enjoyed. It's definitely been a very interesting day for me, and a very interesting day in the news world, that is for sure. If you're new here, though, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated as we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by this summer. We are getting super duper close to that. We are going to hit it way before this summer. We're averaging like what 100 subscribers a week, or not a week, but every 2 weeks at least, which is crazy. So hopefully we can hit that pretty soon. And outside of that, if you're on Substack, please consider subscribing as well. It's $8 a month. All funds go to me. Helps me pay for the things that I need to pay for in my life, like my groceries, clothing, and all of that. I want to thank both of our paid subscribers, Sean, Zona, and Nan. And I will thank you all for watching today's episode. And I will see you all in tomorrow's.